Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very impromptu live reacting to the Goodreads Choice Award winners for 2024. My name is Marides. You are on my channel, and I'm here today with Jamila.
Hey everyone, I'm Jamila. Jamila be reading on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. Yeah, easy to find me.
All the places.
All the places.
This whole thing came about because on the Discord, somebody tagged me and was like, "Are you going to be reacting to the winners?" And I was like, "No." And then Jamila was like, "Want to?" And I was like, "Okay, yes." So I appreciate you being down for the cause. Um, I put together a little presentation here that has all of the winners. And I guess we'll just jump right in talking about what won, Goodreads as a popularity contest, if we've read anything in the category, what we wanted to win, things along those lines. And of course, I would love to hear all of you guys sound off in the comments as well about each category, what you voted for, what you wanted to win, and whether or not you're surprised by what won. So let's get started with the fiction category. So like I said, I put all of the winners. This is like in order of votes that it got, and I put the vote tally down at the bottom for the top five. The other thing that I went in, because I think a big thing that people talk about with the Goodreads Choice Award winner is that being a popularity contest. So I went in and looked at how many times each of these books was rated, which is different than like shelved or whatnot. But I just looked at rated and I indicated with like the 1, 2, 3 what the actual most popular books are. So The Wedding People won, and it was the most popular book in this category. Have you read it, Jamila?
No, I've only recently heard about this book too. I really thought Intermezzo was gonna win. I guess it just came out, so it doesn't have as many reviews or ratings, but I still thought she would persevere.
Looking at that, that's what my money would have been on. I thought maybe James, because it had such a moment as like a literary darling and like critical acclaim. That was my initial like gut reaction, and then I was like, maybe that's why it won't win. It's
Mhm.
because it's good. So that those were my thoughts. But I do like had heard nothing about The Wedding People, but it won by a lot, and it is by far the most popular in this category. Like hundreds of thousands of people have marked it as one to read, and in the thousands of ratings as well. So
I think it was a Read with Jenna pick also. It was one of the book clubs, so that makes sense.
yeah, any interest in reading it?
No. No. Also, someone pointed out in the comments, I think James was actually nominated for historical fiction,
Is this a
but
question? I don't know. I can't remember.
I think it was, but either way, it didn't win in either category.
Yeah,
So
it did not win. I don't know.
yeah.
We'll see a little bit later if it's in the historical fiction category.
Mhm.
Wedding People was a book of the month pick. I never
Mm.
heard of Wedding People. I have book of the month, and I still did not register this book at all. I think I am
I
interested in reading it because it is so popular, and I'm like, what's the thing? What's
I
it
have no
doing?
idea what it's about. I'm assuming a wedding based on the
Yeah,
title.
it's like someone who crashes like a rich people wedding.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, what are you interested in reading from this category, if anything?
So I have a very contentious relationship with Sally Rooney. I like totally recognize that she's a very skilled author, but her books just like haven't totally meshed with me. And yet I still am interested in picking up Intermezzo, James for sure. Martyr is one that I've been meaning to read all year. And there was some other books that didn't make it to the top 10 that I was more interested in, but everything else, I didn't even know Leanne Moriarty had a book. So I was surprised to see her there. And I thought she mostly wrote mystery thrillers. So
Yeah. Martyrs on my TBR, James is on my TBR, and specifically to try and get to in December because they have both been on my TBR for so long. I liked Normal People. well enough. But after I read it, I just never picked up another Sally Rooney because it feels like I have to be in a very specific mood for that to hit.
Mhm.
So I am curious because I've heard such great things about Intermezzo, about this being like a very strong work of hers, but I'm not sure. It won't be anytime soon. It will be like
Right.
on a whim where I'm like, you know what, a Sally Rooney would hit right now, but otherwise not on my direct TBR.
Mhm.
I don't want to read anything in this category. Other people have the same experience as you with Sally Rooney, kind of middling. I think I'll read Martyr, but that's it. Leanne Moriarty is a thriller, but she always gets shoved into general fiction for this. Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
I've read one of her books, the one that got turned into a movie. Was
Mhm.
it Girl on the Train? It
Mm-mm.
was no, it's not Girl on the Train.
No,
What did
that's
she write? Is it Big Little Lies, or is that a different
yeah,
author?
yeah. Maybe
Oh,
that.
okay, I read Big Little Lies. I thought it was okay.
The people didn't vote in this category because they hadn't read anything. Surprise, Sally Rooney didn't win. Yeah, so the big upset is Sally Rooney, and it really truly is, I think, just because Wedding People is so popular. And maybe because it so here's the other thing about Goodreads Choice Awards that I'm coming to find as I was looking at all these winners and I found like the winners pretty bland, is that there it like so many people on Goodreads are like only on Goodreads and are is not it's not necessarily representative of like the online book community. And I feel like the online book community, if we only polled like people on BookTube and Book Talk or whatever, Sally Rooney Intermezzo was the one that I heard the most about. I haven't heard anything about the Wedding People, but I feel like if you're talking about book boxes and like airport books and stuff like that, like maybe that's where the Wedding People lives, and so we're
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So like that audience isn't necessarily the same.
Yeah, I feel like I get surprised every year, and I shouldn't. Like, Goodreads is much more larger in scope than any other bookish social media, so every time I'm just like, "What? This is not what I've been hearing," but also most people aren't chronically online on Book Talk or whatever like we are, so
Yes, correct. All right. Any final thoughts on fiction? Oh, I will say I didn't mention this on my TBR, but I have Blue Sisters because it was a book of the month thing as well. Um,
Mm,
and so I got that month just based on the description and because I'm a sucker for anything about sisters. So that is on my TBR as well.
okay. Yeah, no
Oh,
from me.
historical fiction. Yeah, here's James. Kristen Hannah, the women won by like a lot. I think that this might be the biggest margin that we see here. Comparatively, the Wedding People had 94,000 votes, and Intermezzo next down had 67. The women had 253,000 votes. So that is like, yes, not only a landslide, but like a heck ton of voters in this category, period. It was the most popular book in this category just by the numbers. The second one was actually the third place finisher. And then James is the third most popular in this category, but it came in second by votes. Have you read anything by Kristen Hanna?
I've not. She is not writing the type of historical fiction that I tend to be interested in.
Yes. I'm not a historical fiction reader, period. It takes a lot for
Mhm.
me to be like swayed by historical fiction. And yeah, this like Kristen Hanna is the exact opposite of what I'm looking for in a historical. No surprise
Yeah.
here. Wow. Yes. Not surprising. People love Kristen Hanna. Um, will
Yeah,
they
she's
all be?
really having a moment right now. I mean, for the last few years, but I don't know. I get really surprised by what authors or like backlist titles are getting really popular amongst like the younger online book community.
Yeah.
Like Colleen Hoover, Kristen Hanna. I feel like Ellen Hildebrand. I feel like these are all the types of authors that like the older, like our mother's generation tends to love, and
Mhm.
yet it's really having a moment with
It's coming back
Gen
around.
Z. It's coming back around, and I'm like, okay.
They do say that Gen Z is most like boomers than any other generation. So,
Hmm.
uh-huh. In this category, we see the brown people on bottom, which is a trend that we're going to see throughout the category. So, uh, Anita de Monte Laughs Last coming in 10th, and The Seventh Veil Salome coming in ninth. Those are the only two in this category that I personally am interested in reading.
Hmm. Yeah, I have Anita de Monte on my physical TBR. I read her debut and really loved it, so I was interested in that. I love Sylvia Moreno Garcia, so I knew I'd get around to that one. James, again, a lot of the stuff that didn't make it to the top 10 are the things that were on my radar.
Yes.
Everything else, I don't really know what's going on here.
Yes, I've heard that Anita de Monte is like particularly good on audiobook. Like there's like a
Mm,
performance element to it as well, and it's like a full cast. So I might do that. But yes,
yeah.
I read everything that Sylvia Moreno Garcia writes. I just haven't gotten around to Salome yet. But
Hmm.
it's another one that I'm like December, because apparently I'm going to read 100 books in December. So. Any other thoughts here?
I'm curious about this book lovers library. I'm literally just seeing this for the first time right now.
Yeah.
I Yeah, I haven't even heard. Like, I'm just looking at some of these and I'm like, damn, who are these people?
Who are you and what
Who are you?
is going on? Madeline Martin, The Book Lover's Library, a heartwarming story about a mother and daughter in wartime England and the power of
Never
books.
mind.
Yep.
Cut the cameras. Never mind.
Any that is like I can't any sort of like wartime, such a
Yeah,
hard
no.
sell.
Especially like the two world wars. I'm like, okay, I've had enough. Thank
I
you.
I can't do it. Yes, I was also surprised that Jodi Pico was so low on the list, but I've had this thought too about like how some of this, like where exactly we split the vote, like how many, like what the overlap is of Kristen Hanna readers with like Jodi Pico readers, maybe, and like you got to pick one or the other. But that's just a working theory. Kindle Limited books are probably going to have a bigger audience. We talked about Book of the Month, so yes. All right, moving on. Mystery thriller, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, which was a Book of the Month book. Uh,
Hmm.
okay, I just mentioned this about splitting the vote. Uh, the top three most popular books did not like. So the first one was The Teacher by Frida McFadden. Then goes The Last Lie Wins. Then goes The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. I feel like Frida McFadden split her vote.
I
Like
think
if you
so.
add both of like the both categories of her vote, she would have won this category if there was just one book on here, but it split the vote. And so she ended up not winning the category, which made room for like the fourth most popular book in this category to actually win, which I just love
Hmm.
on principle because previous to this point, it's just been the most popular book wins. But here comes the God of the Woods, like, haha, surprise, bitches.
I'm dead. Yeah, I was guessing that The God of the Woods was going to win just because I've heard so much about it, and I'm not a very big mystery thriller reader, so I only really know what has gotten like really popular. So that's one I've heard so much about. It was a book of the month pick. Um, and I'd been hearing like actually good things about it, but I know Frida McFadden is so popular, which is where like she just came out of nowhere
Yes.
suddenly. Like,
It feels that way. I'm very curious about Freedom McFadden books, but the vibe is like I already know I'm not gonna like it, and I can't tell you why
yeah.
because I can't tell you anything about that author or her stories or anything like that. But I just the vibe, like I can
Hmm.
smell that book coming, and you know what I mean. Like I just don't think I will like it.
I
Um,
just feel like the people who like her books tend to have very different tastes than me.
yes.
So that's part of it.
I did start The God of the Woods. It is a Book of the Month book. I got it through Book of the Month, and I took it on vacation to read with me, and I started it, and then I just never finished it on vacation and never finished it. So I will eventually get back to that one. And I'm always in the middle of reading like 30 books. So I started We Solve Murders and How to Solve Your Own Murder. So those are the three that are on my list to actually read. Any here called to you?
The only one really is The God of the Woods. Everything else, like I said, I'm not really a big mystery thriller reader, so yeah, none of these are really calling to me. I read one Lucy Foley book, but I haven't heard many good things about her books after the guest list, so I don't know.
We should buddy read a Frida McFadden.
You think so?
Yeah.
I guess.
You're like, you think so?
Listen, I know you love reading, hate reading books. And I do too, but not as much as you.
Drop an emoji in the chat if you want Jamila to buddy read Frida McFadden with me. Let's see what we got. This one really surprised me. So people really feeling like Frida would have won or expected her to win. She definitely would have won if only one of them was on here. So I'm glad a different author got to win. I agree. Like I'm happy. I don't even know anything, apart from what I read of this book, but I really just enjoy for like the plot that Frida McFadden split her vote. Oh yeah, maybe a split vote in horror. Frida McFadden is the Bernie Sanders of Goodreads. I don't know what that means.
Wow. I feel like that's a really bold statement, but I can't figure out what it means. Always there, like always in the running. Is that what you mean? Because Bernie, hey, listen, he didn't run this time, but also,
or maybe like
we don't need to talk about that.
Very apparently popular, but never wins. Like maybe that's the.
But Frida McFadden has won.
I don't know. I need an explanation because this is a very bold statement, and I'm in love. Oh, we've got some Frida lovers. Okay. Meg with Books will be so happy.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of those mystery thriller videos.
This competition feels much closer, which is interesting. Yes, the vote split here is much closer compared to Kristen Hanna just obliterating the field.
Mm-hmm.
No, the 1, 2, 3 is what's actually the most popular according to how many times it's been rated. So I just went in and looked and compared the number of ratings each of the books have received, so people who read and rated it, to indicate what is the most popular book in this that was nominated. So The Teacher is the most popular, but it didn't win. The second most popular was First Line Win, etc. Okay, I'm trying to catch up on comments. oh, I'm like, what are all these emojis? I forgot.
Dang, like, I was hoping you would have forgotten. I saw them come in and I was just like, I'm not gonna say anything.
Look at this. The people want it.
We'll revisit this in the new year. How about that?
After Christmas.
Yeah, too much going on right now.
All right, romance. My prediction was Emily Henry. Emily Henry won. Emily Henry was the most popular book in this category, and she won by a pretty significant amount. It wasn't a landslide, but there are 30,000 votes between her and second place, which was Ada Jimenez. And then Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which in my prediction, I didn't even have Bride in this category. I had the other Ali Hazelwood in this category, which it is a romance, but I don't know why, because it was paranormal. I just kind of like left it off the list entirely. But number 3 went to Bride. Thoughts here?
This is the category where I read the most. Oh, and I guess I have read one of the winners. I did read Funny Story. I really liked it. I expected it to win. I'm not surprised by Just for the Summer coming in second place. I feel like those two are the big ones of the year. I'm also shocked by Bride. Not in Love was the other book that came out, and it was nominated in the initial round, but it got kicked off when we got to the final top 10. Mm-hmm. I'm really surprised that Bride is even up this high, to be quite honest. I feel like it was very contentious even amongst Ali Hazelwood fans. Honestly, both of them, both of her releases this year, because I think it's just kind of different than what she's done before in some ways, but it definitely still feels like an Ali Hazelwood book. So Yeah, I don't know. These are books that I expect to be on here. They're these authors are always on here. So
Yes. Oh yeah. Somebody pointed out that there's like a big gap between number 3 and number 4. Like the top of the list and like the bottom does have a like a wider split in vote. Um, Yeah, I for a moment as I was like making predictions because I did predict this category specifically, I thought I was like, will Abby Jimenez, is this her year to overtake Emily Henry, because she's been also having a moment. I feel like everywhere I turn in the romance community, people are not only talking about her but talking very highly about this book specifically. But ultimately, I was like, I don't think so. I think like I don't know, Emily Henry is just kind of unstoppable, and there's a lot of like crossover there between like women's fiction, romance, and like so yeah, not surprised to see that. Very surprised by Bride. Anything
mhm.
else on this list that you will read?
I might check out Leather and Lark. I did read Butcher and Blackbird, and I was surprised by it. I mean, I still gave it like a 3 star. I think had it ended like 80% of the way through, I probably would have given it a 4 star, but the last 20% was so stupid to me. So it was fine. I mean, I don't know. None of these other books really do it for me. The 2 other ones that I've read, again, didn't make it to the top 10. This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan and The Love Songs of Ricky Wilde
The
by
Black
Tia
people.
Williams. I read The Black People. Yeah. So, and they're not here with us today.
They are
So,
not here
yeah.
so with us. Yes. Um, yeah, I started Butcher and Blackbird and I DNF'd it because I thought it was terrible. I've read the first book in this Liz Tom Ford series, and it was racist. I read one Anna Huang, and it made me so angry that I had to like walk away from the book. I am okay with Christina Lauren. I tend to give their books like 3 stars, like they're pretty solid. And I'm curious about Elsie Silver, but something about the small town romances just give me, I don't know.
KKK vibes.
Yes. Oh my God. You said it.
Yeah, no, same.
You
I'm
said
like,
it. I don't know why. I'm curious, but I expected that it might be like low key racist.
I
I'm not
agree.
basing that on anything but vibes, but
Yeah, it's the vibes. I read one Abby Jimenez book, the first one in this, I think, interconnected standalone part of your world, and I really did not like it. But I'm willing to give her another chance.
yeah.
If I don't know, I'm kind of curious what other people think about
Yeah.
her books.
I also like I'm very it was very surprising to me because Abby Jimenez, when she first came on the scene, I feel like I heard very bad to mixed things about her books. And more
Hmm.
recently, I've been hearing like very, very positive things about her books. And so I don't know, I haven't given her another chance, but I feel like I'm getting more and more curious because people, I don't know if it's just like a wider audience is being more forgiving or if she's getting better. Um, so I'm like on the brink of curiosity with her books, but not there yet.
I also think it's just an audience who hasn't read a lot of her backlist yet.
Sure.
Because I've heard like her, I don't know if it's her first series, one of her earlier works handled like the topic of like miscarriage and like pregnant, all that stuff, like really insensitively, I've heard. And I think that was a lot of the ire that I heard about her books. And then um the book that came out before this one, it's like the one in between Part of Your World. I don't remember the name of it, but I feel like that one had a blew up last year,
Yeah.
and then that started the wave of people going into Abby Jimenez books. So I don't know. I also like spent a lot of time thinking that she was Latina because of her last name, and I was really salty finding out that she was a white woman. I was like, wow, look at this woman of color is like really blowing up. Good for her. And then it was not, which is like not her fault. It's her married name, but like I was salty about
Yeah,
it.
you're like, yes, look at it finally, especially considering like all of the winners and like even the top of all of this is very white. But you know, so is Abby Jimenez.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh my God, so many comments. This year seems wider than normal. You are correct.
Hmm.
It does feel wider than normal. Before we got online or on live, we were talking about this, about how like post 2020 there was a moment where it was like, oh, a little diversity, but no more.
No more.
Let's see. Oh, there is military main characters in that series. So yeah, that feels right in the Elsie Silver. Hit or miss for Christina Lauren. No way. You just ruined somebody.
I'm so sorry. You're experiencing what I experienced last year. I really was like, period. We love a woman of color growing up like this. I was
Oh,
like, even if these books are not for me, I love that for her. And then it's her married name. So I think her husband is Latino.
mhm.
But she is not.
Someone voted for her because they thought she was Latina. So
Damn. Mm.
amazing. Right. Lots of thoughts and feelings on romance, but we are moving on to
Oh,
romantasy.
that was a little bit of a jump scare. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh, all the covers together like that.
They are weirdly samey, except for maybe the spell shop. And yeah, and it is, yeah. Looking at this again, the vibes. Probably nobody is surprised that Sarah J. Maas wins. I also have like my personal theory is that they created the romantasy to get Sarah J. Maas out of the fantasy category. That's my pet theory. And
I
there's
agree.
like absolutely no way that she doesn't win any year that she has a book. And you can see that this is another landslide, 122,000 votes compared to the next one down is 56,000. And it's really interesting to me that Apprentice to the Villain is in second place because both Quicksilver and When the Moon Hatched were wildly more popular just by like volume of people who read and rated than Apprentice to the Villain. But it might again be kind of a thing with a split vote. Like the people, I mean, When the Moon Hatched is like uh, a copy paste of Sarah J. Maas. And so I feel like if you love When the Moon Hatched, you love Sarah J. Maas. So it might be kind of a shared audience thing, but who knows?
I
Have,
thought maybe this was the year that Sarah J. Maas would be dethroned. I thought it would be a really close vote just because I feel like I've heard bad things about this book
yes,
from her fans.
yes.
So I kind of thought in like Quicksilver and When the Moon Hatched, we're having such huge moments this year from the same audience. So I thought maybe one of them would come through and take her down, but I guess not.
No, I also heard like very I mean bad things about this book from her fans, but I feel like the qualifier is from her fans. These are people that still love her, love the characters, love the books, are going to continue to read the books. Is one
That's
thing, but
true.
I also feel like the offline fans of Sarah J. Like she is so prolific. Everybody that you know who is getting into reading or like getting, you know, the bookstores, the airport books, like it is Sarah J. Maas everywhere. I feel like she's inescapable. And so even if
Hmm.
people haven't read all of her books, there's a name recognition thing here. When you're voting, you're like, oh, I only read ACOTAR, but I love ACOTAR, and you vote for a Sarah J. Maas book kind of thing, which is what I think is primarily happening here. Her audience is just so much bigger than everybody else on this list.
Yeah. I'm surprised by Apprentice to the Villain, I will say.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Everything else, I don't know. I guess.
At least there's no blood of
Oh
Hercule.
God. At least we have small wins.
Are
Hmm.
you going to read anything from this list?
No, I'm not.
Jamila, aren't
I
you
only
going
have
to?
I can only take so much romantasy at a time, and this month I've dedicated myself to that Rachel Housel Hall book. And so that's going to be enough for the next few months, I think. I have been
Uh,
curious about Phantasma, mainly because I've been hearing people pitching this as for fans of Danny Phantom, which is so wild to me. One because that's a kids show, but two, like I don't think there's really a lot of overlap in the audience, but I guess.
yeah, I don't. That is one I just finished reading When the Moon Hatched. I Quicksilver is not beyond the realm of my like hate reading that I started it uh earlier this year, so I might go back and finish it. But Phantasma is the only one that I will read with any kind of good faith. I'm I don't have high expectations, but I feel like I will go in with like a 3-star prediction for Phantasma. So I might do that.
Is
Yeah,
When the Moon Hatched the only one you read from this
yeah,
list?
yeah. I
Okay.
read the first of the villain thing and I DNF'd it. I read the first of the Sarah J. Maas thing and I hated it. I read the first Zodiac Academy and I hated it. So like these are
Mhm.
all like further on in the series, and if I read the first and I hated it, I'm not going to keep on. I've heard mixed things about the Spell Shop, but the people who love it love it. So I don't know. I could be tempted to read that one as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nobody read Blood of Hercules. Don't do it. If you want to find out why, I do have an hour and a half video or hour and a half long video talking about that book. Just a quick
Yeah.
plug because I spent a lot of time on that video.
Go watch it.
Go watch it.
Yeah, I do think we need to talk about romantasy covers. I mean, it's gonna keep happening. That's the thing. Like, I want the trends in romantasy to be over, but they're very clearly working and very clearly profitable. So I think it's just gonna keep happening. Why are they like this? Who can say? Yes, Sarah J. Maas is basically the incumbent for this category,
She's so
and yeah,
young
yeah,
too. Like she has a long career left.
yes,
She's just
unfortunately.
gonna be around for our whole lives, I think.
Uh, Jamila's Blood of Hercules video is art.
Mm,
Ooh,
thank
art.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
The Quicksilver cover is crazy. The white tear on Timothy Chalamet's twin's face kills me.
That's good. Oh,
uh,
that's so funny.
amazing. All right. Any last thoughts on Romantasy? We move on. Fantasy. This was a jump scare when I saw
Yeah.
this. I did not expect this. I mean, I expected TJ Klune to be high. I did not expect him to win the category, or maybe that was just my bias of like really not wanting him to win the category. But the it was very close between Klune and Bardugo, just a matter of 1,000 or so votes. And like overall, just like low number of votes in this category. The most popular was Lee Bardugo, but we've got 1, 2, 3 up in the top three of that. The thing with TJ Klune that I find is that as much as like I hear people talking about how problematic he is, it is so contained. I feel like every time I've ever said anything about TJ Klune and like how problematic the series is, I get like a rash of comments being like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? I never heard that." So I feel like we talk about it a lot, being very online, but like the general public really has no idea.
I'm surprised even beyond like the controversies. Just because I feel like I I again I know that the online bookish space is very insular. But I just haven't like really seen this book being promoted all that much, like in bookstores or just like anywhere else where people would find out about this book. But I guess it's the sequel, right? It's a sequel to House in the Cerulean Sea. So
Yes.
maybe like it's the people who love that book are
Yeah.
probably gonna check this one out.
Lots of shock. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
you're just finding out with us here live to break the news. I agree that The Familiar was mid, but I would have preferred The Familiar over the TJ Klune book. Yes, very close race, but low totals across the board. I don't know what happened to the fantasy readers, but they said we're not voting.
Well,
Um,
this category, like this round is like, it doesn't feel like a fantasy, like very like fantasy. I don't know. From what you usually see, it feels like
yeah,
a lot of like some literary fantasy, like The Book of Doors or Blackbird, or is oh that's a Deborah Harkness. Oh, is that in that one series,
yes, I think
the
it is.
Discovery Witches? Wow. I think people probably just didn't even know that that book was out. But like The Lost Story, The Foxwife, all those feel kind of more literary fantasy rather than like full fantasy to me.
I expected TJ or Jay Kristoff to do better. I am personally very happy whenever he loses. So yeah, he will be pissed again. I love that, honestly. um, Surprised he wasn't higher. Have you read any of these, Jamila?
No, actually, I haven't. I own The Familiar. That's the only one. And then again, other books that didn't make it to the top 10.
Yeah. I read The Tainted Cup and I really enjoyed it. I would have liked to see that just based on what the category is, but I didn't have high hopes for it. I mean, I didn't have high hopes honestly for it winning, but I would have liked to see that. Yeah, this basically confirms that they made Romantasy to get SJM out when the fantasy votes are this low without those books. I agree.
It just feels like a very lackluster grouping of books for fantasy. I feel like.
Yes, the choices in this category as a whole are like, where's the fantasy? Uh,
Mhm.
Agreed. It's a weird batch of books. Yeah, anything here that you want to read?
I'll probably check out The Familiar just because I own it. I do want to read The Tainted Cup, since it seems like a lot of people liked it. And then again, some books that didn't make it to the top 10.
Yeah.
I do feel like there are two books that I feel like I'm surprised didn't get nominated. One was Blood Over Bright Haven by ML Way.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that didn't make it, considering how popular it is, and the popularity of her previous book. I'm forgetting the name of it now. And then also, I guess shout out to Rue for this one, but from Heaven. I feel like I've been hearing a lot of people talking about that book recently,
Yeah.
um, and that feels a lot more aligned with like a fantasy nomination to
Yeah.
me.
I think probably Middle from Heaven just came out too close to the actual awards. Like it's starting to
Mm,
get traction now. And I think it will be like a heavy award contender for next year. It's going to be like
hmm
that kind of darling. But I think it just didn't have enough time by the time that like voting came out and whatnot. And a lot of the like things that I would have expected to be higher in this category just dropped off in the top 20, like An Academy for Liars, The T. Kingfisher, the
hmm
Catherine Arden, the Lev Grossman, Voyage of the Damned, I feel like has been everywhere and they just dropped out. It's such a,
Yeah,
this category is so weird. I think that this might be the one that I find the most like confounding right now.
I agree.
Cool. Any final thoughts here for fantasy?
Mm, no, it's a weird one.
It's a weird one. Science fiction. The Ministry of Time coming in at number one. It was also the most popular book in this category, and this feels like a landslide as well. It's like I mean, it's not a large number of votes at all in the category as a whole, but compared one and two, it just won by a lot. Annibot I thought would do better, but it came in third place. It was the second most popular book in the category. Orbital, which won the Booker Prize this year and is not science fiction, I don't think. It's just about astronauts. There's like nothing science fiction about it to me personally. Astronauts are real. I don't know that, but whatever. It won the Booker.
Says you.
The moon landing was fake.
Have you actually ever met an astronaut? Just saying.
Was fake. But it came in pretty, I mean, top five, but the bottom of the top five. So have you read any of these science fiction?
I have not. Yeah, I'm just, like, realizing as we're going through this how little I've read.
I know. That's why when I, like, was first, like, people were like, "Are you gonna react?" I was like, "I literally haven't read." I feel like, what am I reading? Because it's not what everybody else is reading. I all of these seem so, like, removed from my own reading.
Mhm.
And like, all of the choices seem so bland to me. I don't know. It's
I
wild.
agree. I'm noticing too, and I feel like this has been a trend in the last few years, but a lot of for the genre fiction categories, it feels like a lot of the books that are getting nominated or are winning tend to be ones that are not fully of that genre. Like a lot of it does feel like kind of a literary version of the genre. Like
Mhm.
Ministry of Time, I mean, I haven't read it. I actually don't know that much about it, but um I feel like I've seen it very popular with a lot of like literary fiction crowds. And like Orbital too, that one seems very lit ficky to me. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, people are agreeing that it doesn't feel very science fiction-y, more like more literary as a whole for these noms. Yeah, it was barely lit fic set in space. I agreed with Orbital. Um, Ministry of Time has been on my TBR and everyone else's, so that's not surprising. Ministry of Time was my prediction for what would win the debut category, just because it was so much more
Mm,
popular. So again, not surprised to see it win here compared to all these other titles. I started Ministry of Time, but I did not finish it. I read Antibot and I really liked it.
mhm,
I read Orbital, and the first book, I can't remember, in the Stardust Grail that comes before it, is
mhm.
on TBR. But anything here that you would read?
I would check out Ministry of Time. I'm not like in a rush to get to it. I do want to read Antibot ever since you read it and liked it. And again, other books on my TBR that didn't make it to the top 10 that were nominated. That
Um,
that seems to be the trend here.
the Ministry of Time is written by an Asian woman, so we got one non-white winner. Enjoy it. Because it's not gonna
While it lasts.
enjoy it while it lasts. Because that's all you get. No, maybe one more, I think. Yeah. Astronauts are real.
I'm
uh,
starting a new conspiracy theory right
yeah, yeah,
now.
astronauts are not real. Reading Orbital, but I fell asleep during it. Yes, it is very slow. It is very introspective. Nothing happens. It's just people on a space station having thoughts and feelings. Which, when you think about it, you understand why, like, all of the, like, literary critics were like, yes, award winning. But it is very slow, and at least it's very short. It's very well crafted, but I wouldn't go in and expecting like a space opera or like a sci-fi adventure. It is not science fiction to me. It is people in space having feelings. Um, and it's funny, like the big reaction in the comments right now is just like being like, "Is this title really sci-fi? Is this title really sci-fi?" I don't know, man.
My understanding of Ministry of Time is that, like, at the very least, the basic premise of it seems science fictiony, like time travel is seems to be involved.
Yes.
And I've heard that the back half of the book gets actually like pretty plot heavy.
Yeah,
So,
it's sci-fi on a technicality, but not really.
mm,
Like a very, like, because there is a time travel element, then it's categorized as sci-fi, but the book itself doesn't feel like,
mm.
like the genre. So that's interesting. Great. Any other thoughts on, yeah, magical realism-ish. Any other thoughts on sci-fi?
No,
Cool. Horror. Oh my gosh, can you believe that Stephen King won the horror category?
you
Uh,
know what? I will say I'm the tiniest bit surprised. I shouldn't be though, because he wins every time. But that we used to live here has
mhm,
been everywhere. I feel like.
yes.
And also, Stephen King's book was a short story collection. I feel like people are not usually as big on those
I feel like this
comparatively.
there's got to be just like a name recognition
It
thing.
has to be, yeah.
Because like even by the numbers, We Used to Live Here, more people rated it than the Stephen King thing. Like more people read and rated the second place winner than the Stephen King thing. I feel like it's got to be just like people who were voting, like, oh, I know who Stephen King is. Kind
Yeah, probably.
of. I don't read horror, so.
You're like, I'm done. No
To
commentary
say
from
about
me.
any of these. I actually read Simone St. James. I find her work to be more like a like paranormal thriller sort of thing, and I don't find them so spooky that I can't read them. And I find them very solid, like 3.5 experiences. That again, when I'm in the mood for that kind of like thrillery sort of ghost story, that she, it's a sure bet kind of thing. So I would maybe read the Simone St. James, and maybe the T. Kingfisher if I got super brave, just because I like T. Kingfisher. But otherwise, I'm not messing around with any of this.
Yeah.
How about you? Any here that you would read?
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is I feel like the horror category has been the most diverse the last few years out of all of the categories. Like last year in particular, I felt like was really good, but I really want to read The Eyes Are the Best Part. It looks so freaky though, so I've been kind of avoiding it.
Yes.
Um, the eye is like really there. I've been interested in Bury Your Gaze, and I want to read more Stephen Graham Jones. So like any of his, and I am curious about We Used to Live Here, especially because it's going to be a movie I think coming out next year with Blake Lively, which I'm not gonna watch it, but I'm curious about the book. Yeah, and again, a couple of things that at the bottom 20 or bottom 10 books that didn't make it to the top. Diavola, I've heard good things about too, so I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, people are like excited. What Feast at Night for like uh excited for Chuck Tingle, just to like have some of these people like up in the top 5 as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, Stephen King is going to Stephen King in this category.
I
Uh,
still haven't read A T. Kingfisher, which
at
I
all?
know. I started The Hollow Places and I got about 100 pages into it, but I kept reading it at night and it was really freaking me out. So I stopped. It's just like that book was literally like all of my weird like nightmares, like reoccurring dreams that I've had, and I was like, I actually cannot read this right now. But
Yes.
I do want to read other T. Kingfisher for sure.
I love taking Fisher's fantasy, but I don't read horror, so I haven't read a lot of their horror. But I did read A House with Good Bones just recently, and I really liked that, and it wasn't too scary. But I have a feeling that like that is like the least scary of their scary stuff, just on vibes.
Hmm.
So I'm scared to read more. In our I feel like we're just using this live to start conspiracy theories. Astronauts are not real, and also no one read the Stephen King book.
Actually, my dad has this on his TBR. I bought it for him, so just saying. There's at least one person out there.
Not your one sale being what.
The one person who's ever purchased this book was me for my dad. So
Stephen King again. We had that last week. Amazing. This might be the lowest total votes of all categories so far. Yeah, these genre ones are like so surprisingly low. It makes me even more sad about how high the romantasy ones are, to be honest. But that's neither here nor there. Chuck Tingle does do horror more recently. Chuck Tingle has been publishing horror. Not with Blake Lively. Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else about horror?
no.
Proof that your dad exists and owns this book, or it didn't happen.
Rachel, the next time I go visit my parents, I'm gonna take a picture. I literally was over at Thanksgiving and I saw it on the coffee table. Okay.
You're gonna be like, Dad, hold this book and say cheese.
I know. I'm gonna be like, hey, my online friends need to see something.
Don't worry about it. All right, moving on to the debut category. This one was very interesting to me. Um, this is where the videos that I do usually are the debut category. This is where I predicted it, and I very confidently said that the Ministry of Time was going to win this category. It did not. It did win the sci-fi category. It came in second. The thing that is really interesting to me is How to End a Love Story, which is a romance, won the debut category. We'll see the, or we already saw in the romance category, it came in like 9th or 10th. It got like, or even lower, it got like 5,000 total votes in the romance category, but it won the debut category with 63,000 votes. Uh, I don't know how to necessarily reconcile that, except for maybe the romance readers were like, "What's the romance in here?" and picked it. I don't know. But there you go. It is also the third most popular here. So like Ministry of Time was more popular than it, which is why I was like, oh, clearly Ministry of Time is going to win this category, and it just didn't. I don't know how to explain it.
I'm wondering if people like maybe wanted to vote for it in the romance category, but saw it in debut and thought, oh, I can still vote for this in debut, so I'm gonna vote for my other favorite book in romance. Maybe. I don't
Sure.
know. I am very shocked by this because I don't know. This is another book that I've heard mixed things about, but it is a Reese's pick, and also I believe the author is writing the screenplay, or
Okay.
yeah, the screenplay for People We Meet on Vacation.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I
sure.
think it really blew up. Like I've heard of this book, like I've seen it everywhere.
Mhm.
So I'm not surprised that it got nominated and got a high vote. I'm just kind of surprised that it won in this category over these other books.
Agreed. I thought it was gonna do well. It is, like, very popular on Goodreads, and so I was like, "Oh, this will do well." It just I really confidently was like, "The Ministry of Time is going to win in this category," because it was everywhere, it was much more popular, it was much more rated, and so that felt like a sure bet, and the romance said, "Nah, surprise, shorty."
Mhm.
Um let's see. Lots of big feelings on this one as well. Baffled. I wish The Truth According to Ember did better. It was really cute. I also thought it was really cute. Martyr is absolutely excellent. That one we talked about already. It is on my TBR. Mm, let's see.
I'm surprised The Truth According to Emperor didn't get nominated for romance either.
Yes, and The Truth According to Ember being in the, like, top 20 for this category anyways, is really interesting because just, again, by the numbers, it's, like, so much less popular than all of these works, which I'm not hating on because, as we've seen, like, it needs the diversity push, of, like, the editorial choices, but, yeah, that one was a little surprising. This is our second Asian winner, non-white winner here, so at least we have that. Clap it up for that. No black people though, so. Interesting to see how close the votes were between Ministry of Time and We Used to Live Here. Yeah, pretty good cushion between 1 and 2, but very close between 2 and 3. Yeah,
This is also a pretty diverse category.
yes.
Yeah, How to End a Love Story, Ministry of Time, the Hyunamdong Bookshop, Martyr, The Eyes Are the Best Part,
Mhm.
Truth According to Ember, and I think Greta and Valadin is written by an Indigenous author too.
Yes. It's why, like, of all of the like categories to like read in, I've done debut, like, and it's been fun because it's like it's the most diverse category, I think, pretty much year over year. Not only in terms of like the identity of the author, but genre. Like it's just a little bit of everything. And there are no repeat winners. Like there's no Sarah J.
Mhm.
Maas or Stephen King that can win this category every year because it's debut. So it's like every year you have the opportunity to give it to someone new. So debut is just like my favorite category of all of them
Mhm.
because I think it's interesting. Yeah, and it does, but this is true. It seems like a second chance to vote for your favorite category, kind of a cop out. So maybe that's what we're seeing in the results. Did I ask you already which ones you're going to read here? You already we talked about Martyr. Anything else here that? Oh, and the eyes are the best part.
Yeah, those two, Truth According to Ember. I am curious about Greta and Valdin, as
Mhm.
well as the bookshop one. And then again, like I might check out Ministry of Time at some point and maybe How to End a Love Story.
Yeah. Yeah, see, this is like the one where it's like the most things where you're like, yeah, I'll do a
Yeah,
lot of this. So it's just interesting. All right. I think we're getting near the end because maybe. Oh no, we've got the YAs. YA fantasy, Rebecca Ross on top. Um, and this category went 1, 2, 3 with in terms of like the popularity of the titles in the category. Yeah, I don't know, I don't find this surprising. I also don't read much YA fantasy, so what do I know? uh any thoughts here?
not really. It's also kind of what I expected.
Yeah. Air by Sabbath Tahir is a little low, I guess. You know, but maybe that is just like within my circles. I heard so much hype for Air. It is very like into the series though, and there was a pretty big
Hmm.
gap between the books in the series coming out, so maybe that had something to do with it. Um, if any of these had to win, I read Divine Rivals. I didn't read Ruthless Vows. I tried Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and I like noped out of it pretty quickly. So I'm at least glad that Rebecca Ross won over Lauren Roberts. Like that feels
Hmm.
fair and good. Uh,
Hmm.
any of these that you would want to read?
Not really. Maybe Air, but I haven't read the Ember and the Ashes series, so maybe if I read those first.
Let's see. Air was robbed. I like Ruthless Vows, but Air deserved it. The Brandon Sanderson book is a sci-fi. I don't know why it's on this list. Amazing, great. Air was robbed. It is not adult. It because of the hype. No, these are maybe like new adult. I think the protagonists are 18ish or something along those lines, if I remember correctly. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Do you think it's better when the rating numbers match the votes or when it's different? Guess the latter counters a popularity contest piece, but it feels so infrequent. Um, I don't know. On the one hand, I like it when it doesn't match the like when we get something that is just not a popularity contest because it at least feels like people are voting with some intentionality versus just sort of like name recognition. But the thing about that I find so frustrating about Goodreads is that there is like really no rhyme or reason. Like if it were consistently like popularity, then that would feel like you could just kind of write it off. But there are editorial choices and there are things that win that you're like, how did this win? And so it's like the inconsistency of it like bothers me. Somebody
That
pointed, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
Somebody pointed out also that like this category had much more votes than the general fantasy category. Like more people voted in YA fantasy than in fantasy.
That doesn't seem surprising to me. I feel like YA fantasy has a larger audience.
Yes. All right. And then we're going to general YA fiction. And this should not be a surprise, I don't think, that Heartstopper won. Um, the only like very strange thing here is that the third most popular book in this category like did not like was number 5. So which is to my point earlier is just interesting because like a lot more people read this, but did like people not like it? Like I'm just curious like what happens here when it isn't like sort of based on the popularity. And yes, this is another landslide. Like no contest between Heartstopper and number 2. Like 253,000 votes is bonkers bananas.
I didn't even recognize that Heartstopper had been nominated in this category.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it is really interesting. I wish that the graphic novel section was still here.
Yes. But it's not, so they got to put Heartstopper here. And yeah, at least it wasn't Tilly Cole. Amen.
You know what? I love that Farida Abike got higher than her. We got a black author that did better than this KKK stan.
That feels so right and so
That
good.
feels so good to me. Yeah.
Thank you for that little bit of joy and hope in this bleak landscape. Um, let's see. Have you read any from this list?
I have not. I have read the first 4 volumes of Heartstopper, but I kind of wanted to wait until it was all done
Yeah.
to read the rest. I've been eyeing Where Sleeping Girls Lie. I honestly didn't really love her first book, so I've been kind of hesitant to pick this one up. But the only one that I've really been interested in reading is Thirsty by Jazz Hammonds, which was last place, number 20. So.
I feel like there's like a consistent thing for you, like all the ones that you're like, yeah, that's the one I want to read. They're like down in the bottom.
It's a tough life.
Brings me joy that Tilly Cole is so low. The comments are just really anti Tilly Cole right now, and I love that
As
for
they
all.
should be. Yeah.
Yeah, this is another one that is just a genre. The genre variety is all over the lap because it's YA is not a genre, and so it's just like the age category in any genre except for fantasy, and it all gets kind of shoved in here. So, out two queer books getting in the top 10 is nice.
Which two? Oh, Heartstopper and Gwen and Art. Are those the 2?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. I haven't read any of these, and I probably will not read any of these. So, That's Not My Name was like, I predicted it might be in the debut category just because it was like wildly popular. And I had never heard of it, and I was like, what is this book and why does it have so many like ratings? So that, I don't know, like I kind of got interested to check that one out, but like not immediately.
I haven't heard of that one at all.
Okay. And nonfiction. I did not recognize a single thing on this list, and I'm very curious if anybody has read this nonfiction book, because The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood Caused an Epidemic of Mental Illness sounds so.
It's bad. I haven't read it, but I listened to If Books Could Kill, the podcast with Michael Hobbs and I forget the other person. He's also on Maintenance Phase if you listen to that podcast. But they did this book a couple episodes ago, and it sounds awful.
Yeah. Just the title. I literally saw this and I was like, what the hell? This whole category, the only thing here that I'm like, oh, that is a book that I have heard of and I'm interested in is The Message. It's not Hysteria being second place. When this Millennium book, I forget the title and it's blocked, was like way more popular is weird and interesting to me. I don't know how that ended up that way. But alas, I will probably only read The Message, and that's the only one in this category.
Yeah, that's actually one that I've read, and I voted for that one. I really liked it, but all these other books I have not heard of except for The Anxious Generation. I don't know. I feel like I read very different nonfiction than what is typically nominated.
Yes. Another category where I'm like, bro, I feel like I'm reading so much nonfiction this year and like none of it is showing up in this category. So I'm like, what am I reading? No, wait, what is everybody else reading? Because what are these books? The votes are very low compared to other categories. Oh, here's a good theory. Not Hysteria got those votes for the cover. People are just like, vagina.
All right.
All right, all right. Yeah, the Hanifa Durraqib not being in the like top is a crime, I think. But
He was nominated in the memoir category, but also was not in the top 10 either. So
in the memoir category, interesting. Yeah, memoir, he didn't. Oh yeah. At this point I was just like, I don't care about any of these categories, and I just summarized. The audiobook category was so interesting to me because it just was like a bunch of books sort of repeat nominated. And then Emily Henry won the audiobook category. Did you listen to this on audiobook?
no, I read it on ebook.
Yeah. I'm curious if it's like truly like a great audiobook, or if it was just another like, oh, I like that book sort of thing. I don't know. Because you would imagine that the audiobook category would be like for like an outstanding performance or something along those lines. But
I think Emily Henry uses the same audiobook narrator for all of her books. If it's the same person, then she's a really popular audiobook
oh yeah.
narrator, so that could be it.
Yeah. Look, we're getting all of this like great audiobook. I do like the narrator. Okay.
I like her. Yeah, I like her too. I've heard her. Yeah, Julia Whalen, that's what her name.
Oh, it's Julia Whalen. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Julia Whalen is the GOAT. So sure. I accept this win. Congrats. And then memoir and history, I just kind of put here to summarize who won. The Kelly Bishop memoir won by a lot in the category, and I imagine that is just it's Kelly Bishop and it's Gilmore Girls sort of thing. And
I
then
don't know who this lady is. I haven't even watched Gilmore Girls.
Yes, the audiobook category not listing the narrator's name is wild. I looked at that and I was like, oh, Emily Henry won. I didn't even know it was Julia Whalen, who is one of my favorite audiobook narrators. So yes, I agree that it should have been a little better sort of organized. The Gilmore Girl rewatchers were on top of that. Cadence. Hi.
Hey, Cadence. we're done. Bye.
The one thing I did want to double check. Okay, let's see. 253,000 votes for Heartstopper, and the women got 253,000 votes. 147. Is this really? Did I do that wrong? Did they really get the same amount of votes? No, that must have been a mistake on my part. What am I looking at? Young adult fiction. Yeah, that was just a mistake. It got 81,000 votes. I just left the number in there. So sorry about that. That was my mistake. 81,000 votes. So a pretty good chunk over the next one, but not as wide as that appeared initially. Yeah, so the most voted on book was The Women by Kristen Hanna.
Yeah, it had like 800,000 ratings. I was really shocked by that.
Yeah. That's it. Final thoughts, final feelings on this class of nominees and winners? Bland.
It's the same shit over again.
Blandity bland. Very few surprises, and even the ones that were surprises are just kind of like, how'd that happen, but not like, wow, I'm so glad that one won, and like, pulled from behind. So yeah, just as expected, pretty bland. And if this year has taught me anything, is that I do not trust my fellow man to vote on anything.
Ain't that the truth? Oh boy.
Any other prizes that you prefer to follow? Do you follow any prizes, or?
I guess I was planning on maybe doing a video, but I think it's just going to be a personal project. But I wanted to read the National Book Award finalists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently reading Ghost Roots by Pemi Aguda, and I'm actually really liking it. So
That one's on my TBR. I like reading the Hugos. I find the Hugo
Mm,
really interesting prize to read the nominees and follow. So that one I follow pretty closely. In years past, I was pretty good about reading the Booker long list and short list. Like I did that for many years, and then I kind of stopped. But this year, like I read Orbital, which was the winner. So I'll like dabble here and there to read winners, but I think the only one that I really follow is the Hugos.
hmm.
Mm, great. Anything else? Any chat? If you have any final questions, or Jamila, if you have any final thoughts, are you going to do? I know we've kind of like talked a little bit in the Discord, and I've been asking you what plans you have to read. But are you going to make any Goodreads winners content or planning on it?
I was initially planning on doing the winners, but I don't think I am anymore. I'm really
It's just so
un
bland.
I'm so uninterested in everything that's there. So I think what I'm going to do is read a book that's on my TBR from each category,
Sure.
and do it that way. I don't know. It's probably not going to be as like, wow, Goodreads Choice Award winners or something that really draws people in. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like doing a Goodreads video every year, but I don't want to read bad books. So.
I started my debut book or my debut video where I read all of the top 10 and
Hmm.
whatever. And I read The Truth According to Ember, and that's where I stopped. And the plan was to have the video out today, and I just like never kept reading. And so I'm kind of going back and forth because I know that if I don't do it, I'll look back and be kind of sad because I've done it for the last couple of years. But also,
Hmm.
it feels like forcing myself to read some of these is just going to put me in a slump. And so I'm kind of like, weighing the like pros and cons of like getting the content out and like capitalizing on like everybody talking about these, and the fact that these are so bland and I don't want to read a lot of these. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. My
Oh,
video is probably not going to come out until like mid January. No one is going to care anymore, but whatever.
me next year in April. Hey guys, these are the debut winners of the Goodreads
Hmm.
Choice Awards. Um,
Hmm.
to answer your question, if I read them, who knows how long it's going to take me. But yeah, um, that's all there is. Then I think that I can't put too fine a point on the fact that no Black people won, and that feels like really egregious. And I know it's like a popularity thing, but the fact that like all the most popular things are primarily white continues to be a terrible, terrible thing in the publishing industry. Um, and it makes me sad every year. And I actually don't understand how this is a popularity contest sometimes when things happen that just don't support that, or like what the decision making that people are making. Um, and I guess we'll be here again next year saying the same thing, honestly.
Yeah. I want Storygraph to do like their Ed Choice Awards type of thing.
That'd be
I think that
interesting,
that would be interesting. Yeah.
especially to compare the results to see if there was like significant difference between like users on Goodreads versus Storygraph.
Hmm.
Mm. Who's got the line to Storygraph? Somebody, dear Miss Storygraph.
Dear Miss Storygraph.
The people want it.
I feel like the user base is I don't know, maybe significantly different.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I feel like that there is a way that like just because of the way that Storygraph came about and like the like I don't know, the promotion of it and the talking point about it being like an anti Amazon, anti Goodreads things, that maybe the user base there skews more sort of conscientious than
Hmm.
a Goodreads sort of thing. And I feel like because it is a smaller community, it is more like the people there might be more like online, more book focused, and like
Hmm.
every reader you ever know, including like, the casual reader, is on Goodreads sort of things.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to compare. Yeah, they do take suggestions from users. Yeah, that's what I said. Dear Miss Storygraph, I've got a suggestion. Uh, it wouldn't have to do much to be better than Goodreads.
That's
So
true.
true, bestie. Okay, I think we did it. I was worried we would not have enough feelings, but we did this for a whole hour and there were many feelings to be had. So
Mhm.
high five, go us.
Woo.
And we'll be back when we read Frida McFadden. Um,
Mhm.
when we read Frida McFadden, Jamila
Mhm.
is going to give us proof that her dad has a Stephen King book, and I'm going to
Sure.
prove that astronauts are real. Um,
Okay. That's all in one live, right?
all in one live, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Tune in
That'll
next
be
time.
something.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here, especially like in the middle of a day. So thanks for joining us. And all of your comments and reactions were great. And yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.